Hi everyone, welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories Tales. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. There's always been something thrilling about harboring a secret, something that makes you feel alive in a way that everyday life seldom does. Each morning, the ritual was the same, a tender kiss goodbye to Lisa, my loving wife, while dressed in the drab suit and tie of corporate life. She believed I was heading to the office to a day filled with meetings and deadlines. But the truth? It was far more complex and vibrant than she, or anyone who knew me as Tom, could imagine. After leaving the house, I drive not to the office but to a secluded parking lot, a nondescript spot shielded from prying eyes. Here, in the back seat of my car, I would begin the transformation that felt more like a revelation each day. It was here that Tom receded into the background, and Tanya emerged. The process was meticulous, almost sacred. I'd start with the makeup, feeling the transformation as each layer went on. Foundation smoothed over my day-to-day worries, eyeshadow added a hint of mystery, and the perfect swipe of lipstick felt like sealing a promise to myself. Next came the elegant dresses that I kept hidden in my trunk, each one chosen with care to embody the grace and style of Tanya. The final touch was a styled wig that cascaded down my shoulders, completing the metamorphosis. As Tanya, I felt an authenticity and completeness that Tom's ordinary life lacked. The thrill of stepping into my true identity was exhilarating, a stark contrast to the routine of my supposed daily grind. But this secret double life was not without its shadows. With each transformation, a pang of guilt tugged at my heart. Lisa, who shared my life in bed, was oblivious to this significant part of my world. The joy of being Tanya was tempered by the knowledge of this deception. Sitting there in the quiet of my temporary haven, makeup done and dressed as the person I felt meant to be, I'd face my reflection in the rearview mirror. The mix of joy for who I saw looking back, and the guilt of what I was hiding wrestled within me. Yet this ritual was essential. It was a few stolen moments where I could be utterly myself, even if it meant returning to Tom once the wig was off and the makeup wiped clean. Every drive away from that parking lot was a return to a performance, playing the role of Tom, while dreaming of the day I might no longer need to hide what seemed to be my truest self. But for now, Tanya could only exist in stolen moments, a secret kept in the shadows of my double life. As Tanya, the world held a different hue. It was brighter, more vivid, infused with possibilities that Tom's everyday reality could never encompass. Marianne, our neighbor just across the street, became the centerpiece of this new world. She moved into the neighborhood a year ago, bringing with her an air of sophistication and warmth that drew me in from our very first meeting. Marianne only knew me as Tanya. To her, I was the elegant, self-assured woman who lived alone and managed a quaint online boutique selling vintage clothes and artisan jewelry. Our friendship blossomed quickly, fueled by shared interests and long, lazy afternoons spent in her sunlit kitchen, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with our laughter. Those afternoons stretched into evenings, each moment with her weaving a deeper connection between us. Our talks meandered through a myriad of topics, from the mundane to the profound. We discussed everything from the latest fashion trends to our deepest dreams and desires, finding comfort and excitement in our mutual understanding and the shared secrecy of our growing bond. As the weeks turned into months, our friendship evolved into something more, a romantic affair that caught me by surprise as much as it felt destined. We took evening walks together under the canopy of stars, our steps in sync as we navigated the quiet streets of our neighborhood. The night air felt electric, charged with the thrill of our closeness and the secret we shared. During these walks, Marianne would often stop to admire something as simple as a night-blooming jasmine or as striking as the silhouette of trees against the twilight sky. Her capacity to find beauty in the ordinary made those moments extraordinary. With her, I could be Tanya without reservation, reveling in the persona I had carefully crafted, but also discovering new layers of myself that only Marianne seemed to draw out. The affair was intense and fulfilling, filled with a passion that I had never experienced as Tom. But beneath the surface of our romantic escapades, there lingered a shadow of duplicity. With every kiss, every whispered secret, every shared dream, I felt an undercurrent of guilt for the life and the wife I was betraying. Yet, in Marianne's presence, these concerns drifted to the back of my mind, overshadowed by the profound connection and the completeness I felt. In Marianne's kitchen, with the golden sunlight painting patterns on the floor or under the gentle cloak of evening, I lived a life almost dreamlike in its intensity and beauty. It was a stark contrast to the life of Tom, who returned each evening to a home where another loved him, not knowing who he truly was or the depth of the life he led just across the street. Living a double life requires a delicate dance of timing and deception, a constant balancing act that I had become all too adept at. As Tom, I upheld a facade of normalcy, attending to my responsibilities at home with the loving care that my wife, Lisa, deserved. Our life together was built on years of shared experiences and mutual support, and I cherished her deeply. Yet, amidst this structured existence, Tanya's life began to unfurl more vividly, more demandingly. Each day was a carefully orchestrated sequence of events. Mornings were for Lisa, breakfast together, casual conversations about our day ahead, and a kiss goodbye that carried the weight of my deception. Once she left, the transformation into Tanya began. It wasn't just about changing clothes or applying makeup, it was about shifting into an entirely different realm of existence, one that was increasingly becoming more authentic to me. The afternoons were Tanya's time, either spent in the embrace of Marianne's company or managing my online boutique, which had become both a cover story and a passionate endeavor. I reveled in these hours, free to be myself, or rather, free to be the self that felt most genuine. As the sky dimmed, so would Tanya's presence, carefully folded away like the dresses I hid in the trunk of my car. Evenings were reserved for Lisa again, where I played the role of a devoted husband. We'd share dinners, discuss our days, and settle into the quiet comfort of each other's company. But the dichotomy of my life started to press heavily upon me. With every passing day, the emotional toll of switching between Tom and Tanya, of juggling two distinct lives, began to wear me down. As Tanya, I felt a completeness that eluded Tom. With Marianne, I experienced a passion and connection that was intoxicating, fulfilling parts of me I had to suppress at home. These feelings contrasted sharply with the love and commitment I felt for Lisa, which, while genuine, belonged to a part of me that was increasingly feeling like a costume I couldn't wait to take off. Nights were the hardest. Lying beside Lisa, I was haunted by the duplicity of my actions. The guilt was a silent predator, gnawing at the edges of my happiness, reminding me that the joy I found in Tanya's world was built on a foundation of lies. The strain of maintaining this balance was exhausting, and I began to fear that it was only a matter of time before my two worlds would collide. The thought of hurting Lisa, of losing her, was unbearable, yet so was the thought of extinguishing Tanya, who had become an integral part of who I was. This constant internal conflict left me grappling with a profound loneliness, a loneliness that stemmed from not fully belonging to either of the lives I was living. As much as I tried to keep both worlds separate and intact, I couldn't shake the feeling that eventually something had to give. The pressure was mounting, and the facade I had so meticulously crafted was beginning to crack. The unraveling began on a seemingly innocuous afternoon. Lisa, ever thoughtful and kind, decided to surprise me with lunch at my office. Her intention was a simple gesture of love, one that in any other marriage would have been a delightful break in the monotony of a workday. However, the threads of the web I had woven were delicate, and her surprise visit tugged at them perilously. When Lisa reached the office building and inquired at reception, the confusion that clouded the receptionist's face was the first tear in the fabric of my dual existence. Lisa was told that I hadn't worked there in over a year. Bewildered and unable to grasp the implications fully, she felt the ground of her reality shift. Her confusion quickly spiraled into suspicion as she tried to reconcile this new piece of information with the man she knew, the man who kissed her goodbye every morning. Fueled by a mix of hurt and determination, Lisa took it upon herself to uncover the truth. One morning, under the guise of her usual routine, she didn't head to her job but instead followed me after our morning goodbye. The drive that should have led to an office building instead ended at a secluded parking lot. Hidden from view, she watched, heart sinking, as I transformed from Tom, her husband, into Tanya, a version of myself that she had no knowledge of. The meticulous application of makeup, the elegant dresses, and the styled wig, it was a ritual she witnessed with a growing sense of alienation. Her heart didn't just break, it shattered as I drove away, not to a day at an office but to Marianne's house. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place in the most painful way imaginable. The man she loved, the life she believed they shared, it was all undercut by a reality so stark that it felt like a physical blow. That evening, the air between us was charged with an electric tension as she confronted me. Her voice, usually so warm and gentle, was sharp with betrayal and confusion. "Tom, where do you really go every day?" Her question hung heavily in the room, a sword of Damocles that threatened the very foundation of our life together. The facade I had maintained crumbled as I stood there, caught in the stark light of her hurt and suspicion. The words that followed were the hardest I had ever had to speak. I confessed everything, the double life, the transformation into Tanya, and the relationship with Marianne. Each word felt like a betrayal, yet also a relief, as if I was finally acknowledging the depth of the duplicity I had allowed to grow between us. Lisa listened, her face a mask of hurt that occasionally crumbled into sobs. The pain was palpable, radiating off her in waves as the life she thought we shared morphed into something unrecognizable. The conversation stretched into the night, a torturous unraveling of the life we had built. By the end of it, the space between us felt insurmountable, a chasm widened by deception, and dressed in the garb of my other self. That night, the house we had lovingly made into a home felt like nothing more than a stage for my duplicity, every corner a reminder of the trust one had broken. As Lisa retreated into the cold silence of her hurt, I was left to grapple with the full weight of my choices, the joy of being Tanya now tainted with the devastation those choices had wrought. The confrontation that evening marked the irrevocable breakdown of our marriage. Amidst the storm of revelations, I confessed everything to Lisa, the full extent of my double life, my identity as Tanya, and my affair with Marianne. Each confession peeled back layers of deceit, exposing the chasm that had developed between us. Lisa sat across from me, her eyes a mirror of the betrayal she felt. The pain was palpable, etched deeply into her face, transforming her familiar features into a mask of hurt I could hardly bear to look at. As I laid bare the secrets I had harbored, I watched the foundation of our marriage crumble in real time. Her reaction was a mix of disbelief, anger, and profound sorrow. "I don't even know who you are anymore," she whispered, the words cutting through the tense air between us like a knife. Her voice, once warm and affectionate, now trembled with the weight of her disillusionment. "How could you?" This question, loaded with the agony of betrayal, hung heavily in the room, echoing off the walls of our home, a home that had been built on what she now saw as a facade. The complexities of my identity, the reasons behind my actions, seemed irrelevant against the stark backdrop of her pain. For Lisa, the man she loved, the person she had shared her life with, had become a stranger. The revelation of Tanya, rather than bridging our distance, had only served to expand it, rendering our shared past a lie in her eyes. Unable to see a way forward, drowning in the deceit that had infiltrated our marriage, Lisa made the painful decision to file for divorce. The legal proceedings that followed were a mere formality compared to the emotional turmoil we both endured. Discussions about the division of assets and the disentangling of our lives were conducted with a clinical detachment that belied the years of love and companionship we had once shared. As the divorce papers were signed and the reality of our separation cemented, the finality of it all weighed heavily on me. The freedom to be Tanya, which I had once coveted so dearly, now came at a price I hadn't anticipated. The loss of the woman I loved and the life we had built together. The home we had once filled with laughter and love gradually turned into a silent testament to our failed marriage. Each room echoed with memories, each photograph a reminder of a happiness that had been predicated on an incomplete truth. As Lisa packed her belongings, each box seemed to carry away a piece of the life we had envisioned together, leaving behind a void filled with regrets and what-ifs. The day she left, our final goodbye was a somber affair, marked not by bitterness but by a profound sadness for what had been and what could never be again. The door closed with a quiet finality, and I was left alone, surrounded by the remnants of a life that would no longer include Lisa. In the silence of her absence, the cost of my choices became clearer than ever, and I was left to confront the reality of a new beginning, one that held freedom for Tanya, but at the expense of a shared past that I had treasured more than I had known. The divorce marked the end of an era and the painful beginning of another. The process was not just a legal dissolution of marriage, but an emotional unraveling that left deep scars. Within the confines of our small community, where secrets were hard to keep, the details of our separation and the reasons behind it became a focal point of scrutiny. Whispered conversations followed me in the streets, and the weight of collective judgment was almost suffocating. In the aftermath, I made the irreversible decision to transition permanently to Tanya. This step was not just about embracing my true self, but also about shedding the remnants of a life that could no longer contain me. The relief of no longer switching between Tom and Tanya was palpable. For the first time, I could look in the mirror and see only the reflection that felt most authentic, without the shadow of deception that had clouded my previous existence. However, the freedom to be Tanya came at a steep price. The ties I had formed as Tom, especially with Lisa and Marianne, were irrevocably damaged. Lisa felt deceived not just by the secret I had kept, but by the loss of the future we had planned together. Marianne, too, felt betrayed, having known a version of me that was intertwined with lies. The relationships that had once been pillars of my life now lay in ruins. With these bridges burned, I realized the need to start afresh in a place unburdened by the shadows of my past. Leaving behind the neighborhood was a decision wrapped in sorrow and necessity. Packing up my life, I felt each object resonate with memories, each corner of our home echoing with a history that was deeply cherished and profoundly painful. As I drove away from the neighborhood, the familiar streets looked different, as if I was seeing them through the lens of my new reality. The journey was filled with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. Starting anew meant not only new opportunities, but also the daunting task of rebuilding a life from scratch. Settling into a new community, I focused on living openly as Tanya. The absence of pretense was liberating, and slowly I began to weave the threads of a new social fabric. I dove into my work with renewed passion, my online boutique flourishing as I poured my energies into it. The connections I made were authentic, built on the truth of who I was, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a congruence between my inner self and the life I was leading. Yet the peace I found in my professional success could not completely fill the void left by the personal losses. The evenings were the hardest, when the quiet of my new home amplified the solitude. In these moments, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, the choices made, and the people hurt along the way. The freedom I now enjoyed was tinged with the sorrow of what had been sacrificed to achieve it. In this new chapter of my life, as I continued to build and grow, the lessons learned from the past became the guiding principles for the future. While the pain of the past lingered, it also reminded me of the importance of living authentically, of the need for honesty in all relationships, and of the complex tapestry of human emotions that had to be navigated with care and respect. In the quiet of my new surroundings, reflection became a constant companion. The silence of my apartment often gave way to the echoes of the past, reminders of the journey that had brought me here. As Tanya, I had found a new beginning, a chance to live authentically and without the constant strain of duality. My business flourished, becoming not just a source of income, but a true expression of my passion and identity. The success I found in my professional life brought a sense of accomplishment and peace that I had long sought. However, this newfound peace was often overshadowed by the pangs of regret for the pain I had caused. The memory of Lisa's heartbroken expression the night I revealed my truth haunted me. Her look of utter betrayal, her eyes filled with confusion and sorrow, replayed in my mind during the still small hours of the night. Similarly, the memory of Marianne's sense of betrayal, her feelings of deception upon discovering the truth about my life, added to my burden of regret. Both had known different versions of me, and in my pursuit of personal truth, I had inadvertently shattered their perceptions and trust. These reflections brought a deeper understanding of the intricate balance between personal freedom and the responsibility we hold toward those we love. I learned, through loss and introspection, that true authenticity involves not only embracing oneself, but also considering the impact of our choices on others. The freedom to be oneself is precious, but it should not come at the expense of others' trust and happiness. Living with this knowledge, I strive to forge a path forward that honored both my identity and the lessons learned from my past actions. I became more mindful in my interactions, ensuring that honesty and transparency guided my relationships. The desire to never again cause such pain to others became a guiding principle in how I lived my life as Tanya. This period of reflection also led me to engage more actively with the community. I shared my story, not just focusing on the liberation that came with embracing one's identity, but also highlighting the importance of integrity and transparency in relationships. By speaking at events and participating in discussions, I hope to foster understanding and encourage others in similar situations to consider the broader ramifications of their journeys. As I continued to build my life around these principles, I found a deeper sense of fulfillment. The success of my business no longer just reflected my professional abilities, but also my commitment to living a life that was true to myself and considerate of others. While the memories of Lisa's and Marianne's pain would always be a part of me, they served as poignant reminders of the delicate balance between self-realization and the bonds we share with those around us. In this new chapter, every success and every connection forged in authenticity were not just achievements but affirmations of a life lived with a fuller understanding of the complexities of identity, love, and the human condition. Years later, as the seasons of my life continued to unfold, the contours of my journey from Tom to Tanya had solidified into a path marked by both personal enlightenment and public advocacy. The lessons learned through my experiences, the joy of embracing my true self, the pain of deceit, and the subsequent quest for redemption became the pillars of my advocacy work. As an advocate for transgender rights and honesty in relationships, I found myself often at podiums, in interviews and writing articles, sharing not just the story of my transformation, but emphasizing the crucial lessons about integrity and transparency that had come to define my existence. Each speaking engagement was an opportunity to reflect on the dual aspects of my journey, the liberation of self-acceptance and the responsibilities such freedom entailed. I spoke candidly about the early days of my transition, the thrill of becoming Tanya, and the profound sense of completeness that had eluded me as Tom. Yet I did not shy away from discussing the darker chapters, my failures and honesty towards Lisa and Marianne, and the ripple effects of my choices. It was important to me that my audience understood that embracing one's identity while liberating also involves navigating complex emotional landscapes and making decisions that can deeply affect others. My advocacy extended beyond speeches. I participated in panels where we discussed the nuances of relationship dynamics in the context of gender identity. Workshops I led often focused on how to maintain transparency with loved ones amidst personal change. Through these forums, I aimed to equip others with the tools to avoid the pitfalls I had encountered, promoting a narrative where self-discovery does not come at the expense of cherished relationships. The feedback from these engagements was both humbling and affirming. Hearing from individuals and families navigating similar challenges and learning how my experiences provided them guidance or comfort reinforced the value of my work. It was a reminder that every aspect of my past, the triumphs and the missteps, had equipped me to make a meaningful impact. In quieter moments alone with my thoughts, I reflected on the tapestry of my life. The threads of joy, pain, love, loss, deception, and redemption were intricately woven together, each one essential in its own way. My journey was a testament to the complexities of identity, love, and the human condition, themes universally resonant and endlessly varied. Years had passed since I first embraced my identity as Tanya, yet the lessons of those years remained ever relevant. They were lessons about the courage to be oneself, the importance of living with integrity, and the transformative power of honesty. These principles had guided me through tumultuous times and had ultimately led to a place of peace and purpose. Sharing my story was no longer just about advocacy. It was about passing on the wisdom of a life fully lived, with all its inherent messiness and beauty, to those still navigating their paths. This ongoing dialogue with the world was my contribution, my way of giving back to a community that had supported me through my darkest and brightest days. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.